Hi everyone, welcome back to True Crime List with me, Alyssa. If you are new, welcome. Glad you could join. So today's case is a heavy one, and the first word that comes to mind is how reckless this young 17-year-old was, not thinking there are consequences to her actions that lead to an extremely unfortunate fate for two young guys. So let's get into it. Dominic Russo was born in Ohio in September of 2001 and was described to be a go-getter who loved playing sports, specifically basketball. His parents would end up having 7 children, including Dominic. Even as his older sister would go on to have kids of her own, Dominic absolutely loved being an uncle and was always seen hugging and kissing on the kids. I mean, he was so kind to everyone around him and had the best sense of humor. In addition, he was extremely driven and had a love for fashion. I mean, even as a young boy, he was very particular about what he wore, even down to his shoes and socks. And as he got older, he had an entrepreneur mindset where he was planning to open up his own clothing line. When Dominic was attending Strongsville High School is when he would meet Mackenzie Shrilla, and they would go on to date for the next 4 years. Mackenzie also grew up in Strongsville with her middle-class family, and she was a typical high school girl that was active on social media and involved in normal teenage activities. But she would be known to have a rebellious side, which for the most part could be seen as nothing out of the ordinary for a teenager. Now, Mackenzie did not have the best reputation in high school, where she was known to be a bully, where she would demean and humiliate people. I mean, to the point where she would tell people who were suffering from depression to end their lives. So you can already kind of tell who Mackenzie was during this time of her life. And I know she's only 17, but I still find her behavior a bit troubling. So Dominic's mother actually owned 2 homes that were next to each other, where she and one of her sons lived in one home, and then Dominic, 20 years old at this point, already graduated from high school, lived in the other home. Around December of 2021 to January of 2022 is when 17-year-old Mackenzie, so Dominic's girlfriend, would move in with him, and at this point, they had been together for about 3.5 years. Now, because the home was right next to where Dominic's mother lived, Mackenzie and his mother had a close relationship, and they would spend a lot of time together over the past few years. And the same also went for Mackenzie's family, where they were also super close to Dominic. But the relationship between Dominic and Mackenzie really started to become strained after she moved in. Not only did the couple start fighting a lot, but it was apparent that Mackenzie was starting to get possessive over Dominic. Now, we also need to talk about a friend of theirs, Davion Flanagan, who went to the same high school as Dominic and Mackenzie and was actually friends with Dominic first, but since he was dating Mackenzie, the 3 would be seen hanging out almost every day together. But this was still a newer friendship at this point in time. You know, the type of friends that you meet through other friends, and although you're not as close, you still hang out in the same circle of people. That's how I perceived Davion's relationship to Mackenzie and Dominic. So a little bit about Davion. He would get a second chance at life at the age of 8 when he and his 2 siblings were adopted by Jamie and Scott Flanagan, after their drug addict parents were unable to care for them. And my heart is just so full when people are able to take in kids and provide a better life for them. I just have so much respect for adopted parents. But growing up, Davion was known to be so loving and really made sure to let those around him know they were heard and noticed. When he entered high school, he would go on to play running back for the high school football team and also worked as the youth swim coach. So I don't know about your high school, but for mine, we had all the different groups of friends. And because Davion was involved in sports, he hung out with the quote-unquote popular group. However, Davion never let this get to his head, and he was friends with quite literally everyone. Like, he did not care if you played sports, was involved in the arts. He would just give love to everyone. Even after graduation, Davion had a friend from high school that had a hard time socializing, and Davion, being who he was, befriended this person. And I guess every time this friend would call Davion, he would always answer. It was never It never would go to voicemail and would just text him that he's too busy. None of that. He was always there for this friend and wanted to make sure he was included and appreciated. During this time around high school is also when Davion started to find this passion of cutting his own hair, and he would even cut his teammates and coaches' hair. This passion of his would grow even bigger when he suffered an injury that resulted in him not being able to play football anymore. So now his dream changed where he was solely focusing on what he was going to do after high school that involved being in the hair industry. Specifically, after high school graduation, Davion started to work full-time so he could save money to attend All-State Hairstyling and Barber College in Cleveland, Ohio. So not only did he have this dream to attend barber school, he actually wanted to open up his own barbershop one day. At this point in the timeline, we have Dominic and Davion, who just had graduated high school, then Dominic's girlfriend Mackenzie, who was still attending high school. This leads us to July 31st, 2022, when Strongsville police received a 911 call reporting that a vehicle had crashed into a building by a nearby intersection. When police arrived, they saw a black vehicle that appeared to be cut in half, almost as if the car was in two pieces. That's how bad of shape the car was in. When the officer went up to the driver's side of the vehicle is when he noticed the legs and torso of what appeared to be a woman. Then the upper half of the driver was on the passenger side underneath the dashboard, which was caved in on top of her, which ended up being Mackenzie. So it sounds like her upper half turned upon crashing, then the vehicle smashed down on her like holy moly. The officer then ran to the passenger side where he would find another person who appeared to be a male whose head was facing the top of the car and had severe head trauma. The officer immediately could tell the passenger was most likely deceased because he could tell he was no longer breathing. It would later be confirmed that the passenger was 20-year-old Dominic. As the officer continued to search the car, he would find a third person, which later would be determined to be 19-year-old Davion. So you can just imagine what is racing through this officer's head in these moments. And he full on believed that all three people were no longer alive. As more officers came on scene, they broke a window, started cutting airbags. Everything they could do to try and safely remove these individuals. While they were doing this, an officer heard mumbling and was able to determine that Mackenzie, the driver, was still alive. As the fire department arrived, they used tools to extract the three individuals, and they could tell Mackenzie had significant injuries to her leg and arm. One of the first things she had spoke out at the scene was, "How is Davion?" Now take note of her saying this. She didn't ask how her boyfriend Dominic was, but she was concerned about Davion. She also appeared to be very confused about what had just happened and was in a lot of pain, as you can imagine. Now, in this moment, 2 air ambulances were being called, one for Mackenzie and another for Davion because he was actually still alive in this moment. However, before the helicopters arrived, he would end up passing away. When Mackenzie arrived to the hospital, they did perform an alcohol test on her, and it was determined that she was not under the influence of alcohol. Yet back at the scene, officers would find a baggie with 8.1 grams of mushrooms that was actually removed from Mackenzie's shirt, as well as marijuana. Initially, the crash was classified as an accident based on the police report that was taken, indicating that the deaths were being investigated as a traffic accident. During the following months, Mackenzie and Dominic's mother would stay in contact, and at one point, Mackenzie sent her a text message stating, quote, "I remember turning onto the street and then my vision faded to black. It really kills me not to be able to remember anything. I promise you I would tell you. I've been asking my therapist why I don't remember, and she said it's because of trauma. I'm going to try to get myself hypnotized and make myself remember." But Dominic's father was not having it. He did not buy that Mackenzie could not remember and really just wanted her to tell them what happened. Mackenzie would also tell friends of hers how sorry she was for the crash, how much she wished it never happened, how much guilt she had that she was still alive, and that she wished her boyfriend Dominic was still here. Now, according to her mother, Mackenzie for the next 3 months would only wear Dominic's clothes, eat the snacks he ate, only listen to music he wrote, and even slept with a shrine of Dominic next to her every night. I mean, this was apparently the love of her life. However, during the investigation, Mackenzie would be seen on social media, going to concerts, celebrating Halloween. Now, you can decipher her attitude and body language from these videos as you please, but to me, I don't see a grieving young lady, and just look at these photos of her. Like, come on. Well, to investigators, it made them feel like she lacked remorse for her actions and pushed this idea that the crash could have been intentional. Not to mention, there was also social media evidence that showed Mackenzie often drove distracted or recklessly. Her mother, however, stated she encouraged Mackenzie to continue to live her life and to go to these Halloween parties.
Because she would never, ever, ever murder the love of her life. Okay? The Halloween, for 3 months after the accident, she would only wear his clothes. She would only eat the snacks he ate. She would only listen to the music he wrote, okay? She was laying in bed for 3 months crying. There was a shrine of him next to her with photos and things that he liked, and this flower that lights up that he got her because he wanted it to be fresh and alive forever. It's like a little Beauty and the Beast flower. Okay, she's got this shrine of him next to her. So she was crying for 3 months. So her friends asked if she wanted to go out trick-or-treating or Halloween, and it was at OU. And she didn't even want to go. She said, I don't know, should I go? She couldn't even walk yet, barely. So I told her, I said, baby, please go. It's Halloween. You've been laying for 3 months crying, only listening to his music. Please go have just a moment of fun. A moment of fun. So we told her to go. My husband drove her. I brought her back home. She just needed a second of fun from losing her whole world. So that was us. We told her to go.
But I just find it strange that she dressed as a corpse just 3 months after she crashed her vehicle that ended the lives of 2 people she was close to. So the following year, in March of 2023, is when this case really took a turn, when prosecution submitted additional evidence to the medical examiner's office to try to have the manner of death reconsidered. After this evidence was reviewed, which consisted of photographs, video images, cell phone records, and witness interviews, the cause of death was changed from an accident to homicide. The report specifically stated that the investigation showed that the driver had intention of inflicting self-harm and harm onto the passengers. Mackenzie was then arrested and charged with 4 counts of murder, 4 counts of felonious assault, 2 counts of aggravated vehicular homicide, drug possession, and possession of criminal tools. During Mackenzie's trial, which was a bench trial, meaning there was no jury, it was just going to be solely up to the judge to decide the case, took place on July 31st of 2023. So exactly 1 year to the day after the crash, and a lot of information came out. For instance, this allegedly was not the first time Mackenzie threatened Dominic while driving him around. The same month in July of 2022, Dominic called his mother where he seemed to be in a situation of distress and needed his mom to come help get him out of it. So this is when Dominic's mother asked her friend if he could go meet up with Dominic and Mackenzie. During the search to find their exact location, the friend would spot Mackenzie's car where she appeared to be driving and Dominic was in the passenger seat. And Dominic's mom's friend would call Dominic during this time, and while both cars began to pull over, he could hear Mackenzie and Dominic arguing, where Mackenzie said, "I'm going to wreck this car right now." Immediately after the car came to a stop, Dominic tried to get out of the vehicle, but the friend could see that Mackenzie was like swinging her hands at him. Ultimately, though, Dominic would end up getting out of Mackenzie's car and hop into the friend's vehicle, where they would then return back to Dominic's house. And this incident was actually never reported to police. So now we have this threatening situation that happened just a couple weeks prior to the crash. And now we are going to talk about the night before, on July 30th. One of Mackenzie's friends, Kelly, was hosting a graduation party this particular night, and at around 10:30 p.m., Mackenzie would show up to Kelly's house with Dominic and Davion. Immediately upon arriving to the home, Mackenzie asked her friend Kelly if she trips, as in do the hallucinating type drugs, where Kelly responded that she does not, but she did notice that the three friends showed up with a bottle of tequila and a weed pen. And I guess the three of them were also debating if they wanted to go to somebody's house that night or trip. Now, Mackenzie, Dominic, and Davion did not stay at Kelly's house for very long, only about 25 to 30 minutes, then they would leave. This is when Mackenzie would drive the three of them to another one of Mackenzie's friend's house, Paul, where they would arrive to his home around 11 p.m. A few other friends were also there, and I guess it was a pretty chill night where they would just play some music and hang out. Some of the friends were seen smoking marijuana, but it wasn't clear if Mackenzie specifically had also smoked. Now, although Paul, whose house this was, did not see anyone engage in other drugs or consume any alcohol, it doesn't mean it wasn't going on, because if you can remember, the police found those mushrooms in Mackenzie's pocket, and she would end up testing positive for marijuana later on. As the night went on, it remained pretty chill, then everyone would eventually fall asleep. When Paul would wake up that next morning, everyone was gone, but shortly after received a text to tell him about the fatal car crash. And oh my gosh, you guys, I can only imagine what went on through this friend's mind in this moment, because everyone was chilling the night before. No fights happened. He didn't see anyone drinking alcohol or doing what I will say is hard drugs. They leave his house sometime in the morning only to find out three of them were involved in this major car crash. I don't know, but personally, I would have some type of weird guilt for whatever reason, knowing my friends left my house and then ended up in a car crash. But even more damning information came out during the trial. Another friend, Tyler, would testify that he was connected to Davion's Life 360 profile, which I guess is an application where it tracks users' location through their mobile phones, and this information is only available to those that have approved connections. Well, when Tyler found out about the car crash, he immediately got onto the Life 360 app and screenshotted Davion's location data, where it showed he left Paul's house at around 5:30 a.m. Then just 6 minutes later at 5:36 a.m. is when they crashed. Not to mention, the Life 360 app recorded that Davion was moving 90 miles per hour. And this would be confirmed by an expert that the vehicle was going 97 miles per hour before leaving the roadway, then was going 80 miles per hour when it crashed into the building. And I guess this road they were on had a 35 mile per hour speed limit. Sergeant Adam McQuad with the Brooklyn Police Department was also a member of the regional crash team that analyzes traffic crashes. And one task he was asked to do was to review the data recorder that was taken from Mackenzie's Toyota Camry. And these data recorders are also sometimes referred to as the black box, and their purpose is to record data, so like speed, acceleration, braking, etc. Well, when this black box was taken in to be analyzed, it was found that Mackenzie was accelerating, so pushing the gas pedal all the way down 4.6 seconds before the crash, and the engine throttle was at 100% until 1.6 seconds before the crash. So until the car went airborne after going over a curb. In addition, the car made a small right turn, then a small left turn, then a significant right turn. So significant that the black box thought the car was turning over. But here's the kicker. Mackenzie never pressed the brake, and as we just went over, she was pressing the gas pedal to the metal until 4 seconds before hitting the building. The defense was ultimately trying to argue that Mackenzie, who has POTS, may experience dizziness or headaches. There was even witnesses that testified that there has been instances in the past where Mackenzie would feel woozy, and on one occasion, she actually fell to the kitchen floor. Another theory was that she could have also suffered from a seizure or a mini stroke and was able to recover from this before she was evaluated by a medical professional 2 hours after the crash. So how I interpreted this was that If Mackenzie had a mini stroke or a seizure that caused the accident, her body would have had enough time to recover by the time she was able to seek medical help at the hospital. I'm going to notate this here, but when Mackenzie applied for her license before and after the crash, she attested that she did not have any conditions that causes temporary lapses in consciousness or loss of muscle control. And even further, she does not have any physical or mental condition that would hinder her ability to control a motor vehicle. On the other hand, there's a concern that maybe Mackenzie's vehicle had some type of defect that could have caused the car to malfunction. Well, when an expert examined the vehicle, there was no indication of any pre-crash mechanical or electrical failure. And you guys, when this expert was examining the car, it was found that there were parts of the vehicle that were partially covering the gas pedal, and underneath these parts was Mackenzie's slipper. So this expert concluded that she was pressing the gas pedal at the time of the crash. After a 4-day bench trial, the court would find Mackenzie guilty of all counts. Some comments from the court stated that when reviewing the surveillance of the crash, it shows she had intent to cause death. It would go on to state that Mackenzie chose to drive early that morning around 5:30 a.m., where there would be little traffic on the road, therefore insinuating that there wouldn't be many witnesses of the crash or people around to provide immediate help. In addition, Mackenzie intentionally pressed the gas pedal to the floor to almost 100 miles per hour and aimed towards a large structure. Now, it can only be speculated that she had intent to end her own life, but it was concluded that beyond a reasonable doubt, she acted purposefully and intentionally to end the lives of Dominic and Davion. So this is where I wanted to point out what Mackenzie said at the crash. She asked how Davion was doing, not her boyfriend Dominic. So in my unprofessional opinion, I believe she was trying to end the lives of her and Dominic and maybe was hoping that Davion would survive. I can't shake off that feeling when I was researching this case. This left the court to sentence Mackenzie on 4 offenses that consisted of counts 1 and 2 of murder, count 11 of drug possession, and count 12 of possessing criminal tools. Mackenzie's mom would speak in court, and man, the judge was being, in my opinion, very stern with her. Watch this.
What was the other thing?
I'm hearing an awful lot about your daughter. I'm not hearing very much about the 2 dead people.
Dominic, okay, I'm asking you for leniency because this was a tragic accident that she does not remember. And Davion, he's a new friend. I'm so sorry.
What does that mean? His life is worthless?
No. God, no, not at all. They all loved each other. They all spent every day together. You know what I mean? I don't know too much for him.
Isn't that part of the problem, Mrs. Schmidt?
Sorry?
Isn't that part of the problem, that they all trusted each other? Isn't that part of...
It's not a problem at all. It was wonderful.
It's a problem how they all ended up in the car together and 2 of them ended up dead.
I understand what it looks like. I'm saying that it was a tragic accident. She would never.
No, we're going to have to disagree on that.
I understand.
Right.
Mackenzie also made a statement before her sentencing.
The families of Dom and Davion, I'm so deeply sorry. I hope one day you can see I would never let this happen or do it on purpose. I wish I could remember what happened. I'm just so sorry. I'm heartbroken. I love Dom and Davion. We were all friends, and Dom was my soulmate. I wish I could take all your pain away.
Ultimately, she was then sentenced to 15 years to life for each of the murder counts, which would need to be served concurrently. So she will be up for parole in 15 years, and her driver's license is permanently suspended. Now, I found this a bit shocking, but Dominic's father voiced that he actually does not want Mackenzie to spend the rest of her life in prison. Specifically, he told the media, quote, "It's horrible for everybody. Yeah, I lost my son. It's harder on our family, but I don't want the rest of her life ruined too. It isn't going to make me feel any better." And y'all, this man is a saint, because if my child passed away from a purposeful action, I don't know. I've never been in that situation. I pray to God that I never am, but I don't think I could reason the same way. But he really just wants Mackenzie to get help or some kind of treatment. On the other hand, Davion's mother stated that they were not seeking vengeance, only justice for their son. I mean, you guys, Davion was just a bystander looking for a ride home. It's just incredibly sad. And his parents even set up a memorial scholarship fund for the barber school he was hoping to attend to. So what do I think? I obviously sprinkled my opinion in here and there, but to be honest, I believe that Mackenzie and Dominic had a toxic relationship. And I was even reading that Dominic was in talks to his friends and family that he was going to end their relationship. And I don't know, but maybe Mackenzie could feel their relationship starting to pull apart or get distant. And selfishly, she did not want anyone else to have him. And as far as the accident itself, I do have to agree with Dominic's dad that Mackenzie probably knows what happened in that vehicle. And in order to protect herself, she's just claiming she doesn't remember. And Davion was just an innocent bystander that was looking for a ride home that morning. It just sickens me that these lives were taken this way. And in my opinion, from a selfish young gal that didn't realize there are consequences to her actions. But let's not forget that Dominic and Davion's life, impact, and story matter. So that is it for today's case. Please, y'all, be safe out there, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.